All right, so let's dive in. On the coast of Peru, a massive new deep water port is being built. It's called the Port of Chancay. Now, on the surface, it might just look like another big construction project. But what if I told you this one port could literally reshape trade across the entire Pacific? Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. To really get a handle on why this is such a big deal, you gotta understand this. Over 80% of basically everything, the phone you're holding, the clothes you're wearing, it gets to you on a ship. It's the absolute backbone of the global economy. So you can imagine, even a small change to the system can send huge ripples everywhere.
And that's exactly the claim being made about this new port, Chancay. We're not just talking about an upgrade here, people are calling this a total game changer. So what's the secret? I mean, what makes this one spot on the Peruvian coast so incredibly important? Well, to get to the bottom of it, you really have to look at who's building it and why. Because see, this isn't just a local Peruvian project. Nope, this is a global play. Turns out the Port of Chancay is a major piece of China's giant Belt and Road Initiative. If you haven't heard of it, think of it as this massive global strategy to build connections. Roads, railways, ports, linking China with markets all over the world. So Chancay isn't just some random port. It's one very important piece in a much, much bigger puzzle.
And they're not being shy about the ambition here either. The goal, and this is a direct quote, is to build the gateway from South America to China. It's all about creating this economic superhighway, a direct shot between a continent packed with resources and, well, the world's second largest economy.
Okay, so let's talk specs. What actually makes this a megaport and not just, a regular port? The sheer scale of this thing is kind of hard to wrap your head around. It really comes down to this one number, 17.8 meters. That's its natural draft, which is just a fancy way of saying how deep the water is right there at the port. And that depth is the secret sauce. Why? Because it means the absolute biggest container ships on the planet, we're talking the super carriers, can pull right up. These are the ships that most other ports in the region simply can't handle. Yeah, this place is built for giants. We're talking about ships that can carry over 18,000 TEUs. And a TEU, by the way, just stands for one of those standard 20-foot shipping containers you see on trucks. So just try to picture that. A single ship carrying a floating city of 18,000 containers. The scale is just wow. And get this, right out of the gate, from day one, they're expecting Chancay to handle 1 million of those containers every single year. And that's just the initial phase. It just gives you a sense of the massive operational power being built here. So the big question is, who's in charge of this huge strategic asset? Well, it's a partnership. A Peruvian mining company, Vulcan, holds 40%. But the majority owner with a 60% stake is Cosco Shipping. And that's significant because Cosco is a Chinese state-owned company and one of the biggest shipping players in the world. But look, having a giant port is one thing. If it's slow and clunky, it's useless. In the world of global shipping, efficiency is the name of the game. It's everything. And when a port gets hyper-efficient, the ripple effects are, well, they're incredible. So check this out. The World Bank did a study and found something that just blows my mind. Doubling a port's efficiency has the exact same impact on shipping costs as literally having the physical distance to that port. Just think about that for a second. Speed can actually make geography irrelevant. It's a wild concept with massive, massive economic implications. So, where does all this potential for efficiency come from? Well, it turns out a crazy amount of time is just wasted. On a global average, ships spend only about 60% of their time in port actually loading or unloading cargo. That means the other 40% of the time, they're just sitting there, waiting. It's this huge, systemic bottleneck, and that's exactly what a modern port like Chancay is designed to smash. So it all boils down to this key metric they use, port hours. It's super simple. It's the total time a ship spends in port, from the moment it arrives to the moment it leaves. Slashing those port hours, that's the whole game. That's how you measure who's winning. And you might be thinking, okay, so what? Why does this matter to me? Well, it matters a lot. Every single hour a ship saves sitting in port is an hour it can use to travel a little bit slower out at sea and still stay on schedule. And that slower travel saves a ton of fuel. That brings down costs for the stuff we buy every day. And just as important, it cuts down on carbon emissions. But a project this huge is never just about ships and containers. It always gets political. It draws a ton of attention, it creates new tensions, and it brings this whole mix of incredible promise and some pretty serious potential risks. Let's break it down. For Peru, the upside is massive. We're talking an estimated $4.5 billion a year in revenue, plus 8,000 new jobs. That's huge. But on the flip side, the risks are also pretty big. There's the increased Chinese influence in the region, which has definitely gotten the U.S.'s attention. And, of course, it's going to create some intense competition for the big established ports down in Chile. And when I say it's gotten the U.S.'s attention, I mean it. The warnings have not been subtle at all. This quote from a top American general really lays the geopolitical stakes out on the table, raising the very real concern that this commercial port could one day be used by Chinese warships. That would give China a strategic presence right on the Pacific coast of South America. And that right there is the billion-dollar question hanging over this whole thing. Is the Port of Chancay just a commercial hub, an engine for global trade? Or is it something more, a dual-use facility that marks a major strategic move in the ongoing competition between the United States and China? So let's pull back and look at the big picture again. Because whatever the true motivation is, once this port is finished, there are going to be some very real, undeniable consequences for how stuff moves around the planet. Because here's what this port really does. It creates a new, direct line. Think about it. For the first time, goods from the resource-heavy interior of the continent, from places like Brazil, can just shoot overland to Chancay and then ship directly to Asia. This completely bypasses the traditional routes, the ones that go way north through the Panama Canal or the U.S. It's a fundamental rerouting of global trade. Which brings us to this final huge question. The lines on the world's shipping maps, they've been more or less the same for decades. But with a project like Chancay, are we literally about to watch those maps get redrawn in real time? It's a multi-billion-dollar bet that the answer is yes.